Welcome, London, to the Manish Tiwari show. This is the show I look forward to every Saturday. And the reason is that it lets me define, lets me recreate the city in which I live, and lets me kind of feel the pulse of multicultural London. London, for me, is also a cosmos on its own. It's kind of a multicultural capital of the world because there's so much happening here in the cultural space, and so much of it defines and goes around the whole world, especially South Asia. We have someone here today whom I will possibly introduce as a man coming from the Bengali cultural sphere, someone who I like to define as salt of the earth. People who are really connected to the earth, people who kind of live, breathe, and have an affinity towards giving cultural rendition to everything which they do. The person I'm talking about is also an entrepreneur. He has created something called Radio Banglanet. But a little bit of digging about him will tell you that he's a software engineer, brought up in a family which was in the Indian Civil Services, known as Indian Administrative Service. And you can possibly find him in anything of consequence happening in this city, whether it's Durga Puja, whether it's Kali Puja, whether it's musical evening celebrating Bengali music, Kishore Kumar. He's an aficionado, and he's a big fan of Kishore Kumar, and he does a beautiful cover version of his songs. The man I'm talking about is Joy Bhowmik. Joy, are you here?
Hi, Manish. Yes, I'm here, and it feels overwhelming to be on television with you, Manish.
Well,
And
look, we've known each other for so long, and I've seen you doing different things, and every time I wonder, how much talent can one person have? And I just keep wondering that how come, everything, which is of consequence in my business, for instance, drawing, visualizing, writing, setting up production, everything is so comfortable with you. And you are kind of ambidextrous, man of multiple virtues, I would say. So I'm very, very envious of you. I just wish that, I should have known at least 10% of what you're capable of. And I would have been able to run my business so much so more smoothly. Joy, it's a pleasure to know you over a number of years. I've seen you doing so many different things. Obviously, when I came to Panchmukhi Puja once and you were performing, for me that was a revealing moment because I could feel in that small auditorium the beauty of a live performance and what it could create. What in this world of audiovisual kind of where you every day you have an innovation and possibly you can get everything in your drawing room. Still, a live performance, what it could mean. So that was a revelation to me, and that was wonderful. But equally so, whenever I've seen you doing different things, whether it's creating comic books, which is kind of, to me, a very different kind of expression, creating storylines, which is out of heritage of Bengali kind of, literature scene, where you kind of are able to bring out things, which are possibly from the land of long back, and give them a life through your comic books. Possibly the land of mythology, which you do so well. And then I've seen you, equally doing radio production, and now you run something called Radio Banglanet. So, you have so many different qualities, and you kind of so well mix all of them together. And I'm equally proud to know you as a person, as a human being, as the father of Seher, and the way you have kind of taken up some things and challenges in your personal life. So, Joy, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let's start the journey. And I would like to start this evening by asking you about Radio Banglanet. So, what is Radio Banglanet all about? Would you like to talk about it?
Thank you, Manish. That whole introduction of mine was quite humbling, and coming from somebody like you, who has set up a beautiful, multicultural agency in London and connecting various aspects of the, various ethnicities that you have connected. I think it's a wonderful job that you have done so far. I'm so thankful to people like you who actually bring the community together. Actually, this was one of the main thought processes behind the birth of Radio Banglanet. Because as a Bengali staying in London for such a long time, I really, really missed listening to the Bengali music and getting regular updates on what's happening in the art and culture field in Calcutta. Because I originally am from Calcutta, but when I say Bengali, I mean Bengal as a whole, the language, the culture, which includes Calcutta and Bangladesh, because we speak the same language, have the same cultural background. So that is something that I was missing out on coming to London. And it always kept haunting me, like, is there something that I can do to contribute and cater to the community that might, work in everybody's favor? So I was toying with the idea of a radio station because, as you know, Manish, I've got a radio background. I mean, being in Calcutta, working for a couple of radio stations back in India, and then coming here, I used to work initially for Sunrise Radio, followed by Club Asia Radio. And so, radio was something that was probably infused in my blood by then. Like, I could not live without radio. And being a musical person myself and the talkative self that I am, I think radio was something that I could not live without. So I thought, why not start a small radio station? And back in 2000, when this actually idea started germinating, it was 2008 end. I used to live in Cambridge at that time, and it all started in my attic. And I thought of, doing something which would be cost effective, because I knew that this has to be cost effective and it has to be for the community. So, people are going to listen to it for free, and creating such a model was a challenge. So as it always happens that, if you're, अगर आप शिद्दत से कुछ चाहते हो, as we say in Hindi, तो, पूरी कायनात लग जाती है उसे जुटाने में. So like that, it was not a huge dream, but it was a dream certainly. And I met the right guys along the line, and they kind of told me that, yes, this can be done if we all pull in our resources together. I said, I can't pay you anything because it's something I just want to do as a hobby. And they said, well, we also want to do it as a hobby. So let's all get together. But you see, there are certain things which start as a hobby, but when it goes to a certain magnitude and you start thinking big, then it does not remain in the in a hobby state. It turns slowly, it goes into a more professional kind of a commitment, a more professional outlook, a more professional presentation. So for that, we needed a lot of money, and once the station was set up and we did some test runs for about a year in 2009, in the beginning of 2009, I met my friend, who also Mr. Manik Dey, and Manik told me, Joy, this sounds like a wonderful idea. And being a Bengali myself, he said that I would like to be a part of this, because at least let's return something to the society. That was the whole idea, to do something for the community, to return something to the society, which has made what we are today. So that was whole idea of Manik, and he promptly, joined hands and said, okay, how much do we need initially? So it was Manik and myself who started, working on this. We invested some money and set up a studio in India, because it was very difficult to do the production here, because we were short of raw material. And the raw material was easily available. You talk about music, or you talk about studio, you talk about presenters. So it all started from a virtual studio kind of a model. So the only pride I can take behind this idea is I was, in a way, market leader before others could think of it or implement it. When we started in 2008 December, there were hardly any internet-based radio stations. I mean, you could count them on your fingertips. And Bengali, there was only one run from the USA, but that was also not a radio station per se. It was more like a playlist which was going on, all around 24 hours playlist. It was not exactly a radio station per se. So probably we were the first Bengali online radio station in a way, full-fledged radio station with about 8 to 10 presenters to begin with. And in 2011, we got in one of our another friends who's like a sister to me who lives in India, and she runs her own media agency in Mumbai, and her name is Mitu Bidichandani, and her husband Romi. So we spoken to Mitu, and Romi said, like, this is something that we're doing, but it is the scope is so big that it's difficult for me and Manik to handle it. Would you like to join the gang? So as luck would have it, they also showed a lot of interest, and finally it so happened that my team in India and UK, and another gentleman whom I should mention straight away is Shomendu. Shomendu, you are aware of Shomendu, Manish, and this guy has been like with from the inception of Radio Banglanet, he has been there, and for the last 11 years, he has been running the station. Absolutely fantastic, in a fantastic way, and ably supported by our production head Manik and the website guy, who's Prabuddha Niyogi. Now, what happened is in the year 2017, this gentleman Prabuddha, he came up with an idea that Radio Banglanet is a radio station essentially, but the listeners want something more. So I said, what more are we looking at? He said, we have got too much of content with us. And if this content can be dished out to the audience, to the reader on a daily basis, why not turn it into an entertainment news portal? So that was something that Prabuddha came up with. And we always welcomed such ideas from howsoever, difficult it might sound. But then we always encourage such ideas. And that's how Prabuddha took the lead with his editorial team. So we got Swati, we got Gargi, and we got Prabuddha, we got Shravanti. We got a few more news reporters who are working specifically for Radio Banglanet. And what
so
they
Joy,
do is
I would like to interrupt you at this moment and kind of ask you this question because, I do understand the evolution of your station, but what I wanted to particularly focus on is how it has shaped representation of Bengalis in the United Kingdom. And I know that it has an effect, it is slowly becoming the go-to place, in terms of broadcast, in terms of radio. Radio Banglanet is emerging as that community voice. Especially, we don't have any other radio station operating in Bengali, and Bengali is such a rich culture. It's got such immense history of writers, singers, poets. There are thousands of names who in the contemporary times also are known. I mean, it's a culture it has a huge depth. So, how Radio Banglanet in the United Kingdom, where we have a fairly large representation of Bengalis from East Bangladesh, what we know as Bangladesh, and also also a large number of Bengalis from Calcutta, from West Bengal. So this is like a melting pot. I mean, this is kind of a unique place. In London especially, Brick Lane, East London, Camden, where we have huge Bengali populations. And then you add the Bengalis who came from India much later. So there's a huge kind of diversity within the Bengali community itself. How does Radio Banglanet cater to that? How does it unite the community?
Yeah, Manish, very pertinent question. Yeah, sorry I got carried away in speaking about my station because that's always a passion area. You rightly interrupted me there. Yes, I was actually coming to that. Now, this has got a huge impact because at the moment, if I talk about the listenership figures, we're looking at approximately about 40,000 to 45,000 Bengali followers in UK.
Joy, we might be breaking, we might be having a break right now, but right after that, we'll pick up this question. I think this is of huge interest for the viewers, for the audience. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, Londoners, we have here with us Joy Bhowmik, founder of Radio Banglanet. Joy, welcome back to the Manish Tiwari Show. So, Joy, before we went into the break, I was asking you, how do you intend to bridge the gap between the Bengalis from East Bengal, now known as Bangladesh, and India from Bengal and from the rest of India and the global Bengali diaspora who live here in London and United Kingdom? How does Radio Banglanet get to achieve that? And especially now, since Betar Bangla, which used to be a community radio station based in East London, doesn't broadcast anymore. So I believe Radio Banglanet is the only community radio station here in London, which represents the Bengali diaspora. So how does Radio Banglanet look at, addressing this huge divide, and let's not call it divide, the diversity within the Bengali community here in UK, in London?
Yeah, but actually, as I said in the beginning, when we started, developing the concept of the station and, talked about music, as a musical person myself and my fellow Radio Banglanet guys, we never saw any difference in the Bengali culture, to be honest, which is practiced in Calcutta or Bangladesh. It's a seamless exchange of ideas, thoughts, music, culture, art, dance forms. So culturally, there was never a divide, if I may put it that way. Mm-hmm. And the music has been ever free flowing between the two countries. I mean, the top musicians keep on collaborating and have been doing it for like ages. They have been doing this. Maybe talk about Rezwana Bonna Chaudhary, or a singer from Calcutta, Indrani Sen, all singing Rabindra Sangeet. But they also collaborate. Rezwana Di sings in Calcutta.
I'd just like to point out that when I was growing up, one of the most popular artists in those days, and my father used to listen to her song, was Runa Lela, who rose to stardom, and I believe she was from Dhaka.
Absolutely, she is from Dhaka. In fact, I would say she's a Bengali first, in the sense, like, culturally speaking, she's a Bengali first. I mean, probably her residence is Dhaka, but then she's equally popular in Calcutta, and vice versa. There are loads of singers in yesteryears and now who have been trained in Shantiniketan. They sing Rabindra Sangeet. And this one gentleman, Rabindranath Tagore, who brings both the Bengals together. And that's a major thing. We have people like Rabindranath Tagore, Qazi Nazrul Islam. They have brought both the Bengals so much together, always. And it has been one, culturally speaking, strictly at the moment. So it was always my dream that, we create a product or a station or a content which would seamlessly, affect the listener in either from Bangladesh or from Kolkata, West Bengal. And eventually it so happened that we have music that is produced in Bangladesh on our station, and as well as music produced in Kolkata also played on our station.
And what about London? What about UK? We have a huge influx of music in the Punjabi scene being produced in London. London has redefined Punjabi music back in India as well. So is there something like that happening here from the UK, which is going to have the impact in the cultural space in the subcontinent?
Absolutely, Manish. Very pertinent question. And we have started addressing this because we have recently started welcoming. Now, you may ask me, why have you not done it so far? Because of some logistical challenges. And also, as you know, we stream not only in UK, but we also stream in the major countries across the globe. So there's always been a demand for established artists, number one. And number two, this was planned as a phase 2, where we have always promoted young and new artists on our station. And more so recently that we have started going out to artists in London, in UK, I would say, in UK and Europe, who produce Bengali music. And, we are slowly, one by one, inviting them from each diaspora of Bangladesh and West Bengal who are present in this country to actually give us their music to be played and to promote them as an artist. And also, for both the Bengals to enjoy a similar kind of music, like Bengali band music, or, what we call it Adhunik. Adhunik means modern. So modern Bengali music. So that is something that we are now slowly incorporating. And even more, like what I was trying to say earlier, even more now what we are doing is, earlier our music content used to be skewed a little more towards the Kolkata production, because as I said, our base of operations being in Kolkata, of course, the content was more easily available to us. Release of new films and the new songs and the new albums. But now we have started collaborating with a lot of Bangladeshi producers based in Dhaka and based in London as well. So over the next few months, especially 2021, is a year we have targeted to play almost the equal amount of music from both Bengals. So this is one way of we are trying to bring the communities together, having chat shows on our station. We have got some London-based presenter now. Earlier, which was not possible due to a lot of logistical and technical issues. Now that the world has become much smaller because of high-speed internet connection and remote studios. So this is now possible, which was not possible 5-6 years back, or even 2-3 years back. Such seamless activity was not possible. But now is a time when, because of the COVID lockdown and others, people have suddenly understood the importance of digitizing their day-to-day activity. That might also include, creating programs, creating radio shows and stuff. So now we have UK-based presenters, which till a couple of years back we did not have, Manish. So now we have got UK-based presenters. Now we are planning on having US-based presenters. So they can actually be on the station, talking live, and that they can do from the comforts of their home.
So Dada, this is what really interests me, that you are able to give voice to the communities here in the United Kingdom, in London, the Bengali communities who are looking for a space to culturally grow. And this has been, in absence of a cultural space, the tendency for societies is to fall back into stereotypical representation. And this is what community media does very well. It gives voice to the voiceless. People living in a cultural vacuum, who don't have the same, I would say, base as someone, let's say, living in Kolkata or even Dhaka would have. So Radio Banglanet is doing that, and I'm kind of, very glad to hear that. What do you think the UK government should be doing? I mean, the UK government had a lot of challenges, some very well-known issues which we have come across, including some, hard-hitting issues like growth of extremism in the United Kingdom, in London, a certain kind of radicalization. And I personally feel that there's a lack of a cultural ecosystem for the youth of this country to express themselves. So you can't expect everyone to be running businesses, to be engaged in the civil society. There are people who are born to find a different voice, to create their own, cultural identity. And for them, there's very little opportunity unless they are merged with the wider communities. So there's a great role for something like Radio Banglanet. Do you think the United Kingdom government, the UK government, is able to kind of give direction, give something more than just empty words and cliches to help people like you, who are trying to create a cultural bridge?
Very, very, very important point you have raised there, Manish. First of all, addressing your first part of the question, yes, if you look at the way we are structured as a someone living away from home, because we cannot take away the fact that this is our adopted country. This is something that we have to call a spade a spade. So in that scenario, what is more important is to get connected to your roots. Let's not forget about our roots. And when that thing we acknowledge that let's get connected to the roots, I personally feel it's very important to educate the younger generation in this country about back home. And when I say educate, I don't mean geography or politics of West Bengal or Bangladesh, but what I want to say is the language, the richness of the language, the richness of the cultural heritage that we have and that we have carried with us. This is something they need to be educated. The government, of course, has to step in where they can promote such things in the syllabus. make certain things available to the masses in this country. Say, for example, if my daughter today wants to do GCSE in Bengali, there's not enough infrastructure available which would actually train her to know Bengali as a language, read, write. Well, speak is something that we can teach at home. And of course, why not read and write? But to take it to the next level, you always need some kind of a formal education. So I think the government needs to push these kind of areas a little more. And when we are talking about the other cultural aspects, like because ours is essentially a music station, all my examples are probably more skewed towards performing arts in a way. So I think this regional performing arts should be promoted by the government, and the bodies like the national lottery people. These people should allocate funds to create such places where they can learn more about the cultural heritage of their cultural heritage, the language, the music, the art.
But Joy, I mean, I think to a fair degree, those things do exist. I mean, there's a fair degree of funding towards arts.
I think, I've been here quite a while now, and I've not seen such much movement in this sense. I mean, it's all there, but that extra push needs to come from the authorities, if you know what I mean.
My question is more towards the younger generation, the generation which is growing up in this country. Are we able to give them, the richness, the legacy of the language, of their culture, so that they don't become, the challenge we have in the UK is that the culture becomes a diminished version of what we have in Hollywood, Bollywood, Tollywood. We need to have a homegrown industry as well, which truly represents the Bengali diaspora here. Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. This is what I was indicating at, Manish. There are people coming from
Joy,
India.
We're going to break into, there's a break now. But please, let's address this question once we're back. Then we're here with Joy Bhowmik, the founder of Radio Banglanet. And I wonder whether Joy has any reference to the city of joy, which is Calcutta. I believe he was not born there, but I'm sure his work takes him there very often. So Joy, welcome back to the show. What we were discussing just before the break, your contribution to the United Kingdom in terms of reaching out to the Bengali diaspora, which is very, very critical because they don't have any other radio station operating in this space now. And there's very little locally done in terms of broadcast. Of course, Iron TV is there and we have a few TV stations, but there's not enough done to give them that cultural recognition, cultural space, especially the kids who have grown up here in East London and different parts of the United Kingdom. I mean, we all know that Bengali diaspora, especially from East Bengal, from Bangladesh, runs the curry industry across the nation. When I went to Isle of Man, Isle of Wight, and I walked into this Indian restaurant expecting to see an Indian there, but always, without fail, in every village in this country, in every major city, and in every population, there is an Indian restaurant run by Bengalis. And that is so critical. I mean, they are part of, they are like essential services to this country. They're essential services for the quintessential curry, which has to be had every week in every single household in this country. So they're not got that cultural space. I mean, they do still, they don't have much of homegrown. When I say homegrown, as in culture which is kind of refined and defined by United Kingdom. There's very little. And I'm glad that you're there. You're defining this and you're making those baby steps in terms of giving opportunity to people in this country to come forward and be part of your station. So from that perspective, what do you think the government should be doing? What do you think the government can offer you? Don't you think that there is a role which maybe the City of London, the East London government, the mayor, or maybe the Conservative government, they need to do something about it?
Yeah, Manish, I'll come step by step. Number one, I was actually born in Calcutta. So there is a
sorry.
City of Joy connection. And then I left Calcutta for other places, but I was very little. But yes, I was born there, just born there, not brought up.
So there's the joy. There's the joy connection.
There is a Joy connection, 100%. And secondly, the thing that was talking about the Bengalis and the curry houses in UK, we Bengalis love our food. That's the second thing I want to say. So even before this call today, I had fish curry and rice, and I was getting ready to come on.
You had your mache jhol.
Yes, I had to have my mache jhol. It's a Saturday, and Sunday it's mangsher jhol, which is mutton curry.
Okay.
So food is a part of our true blue Bengali culture. And thirdly, yes, the government needs to do a lot in this area. As I started saying before we going into the break, that not only does the government need to promote the education aspect of it, but it needs to promote the art, the culture, the music in a big way, because Bengali, after all, is the 5th largest spoken language in the world. Not many people are aware of this, but it is the 5th largest language spoken in the world. So this is something one needs to understand. And secondly, for a station like Radio Banglanet, which has been a community station always, speaking out for the community always, I think the government should have schemes for people like us who are trying to do something more for the community by giving us, licenses, by giving us some kind of a financial support to make the voice heard within the community, do something constructive, to collaborate, to build bridges between communities, between cultures. Pretty much, like what we have been discussing all the time, Manish, when we meet about multicultural aspects. Similarly, I think a lot needs to be done in this area. A lot needs to be done, especially promoting people like us who have taken, at least, as you said, the baby steps have been taken. And if I want to go to the next level, it's the government that needs to hold our hands and, talking about giving us FM licenses at a very reasonable price, probably, or if not, then at least give us a community channel, reach to the entire UK. Wherein a lot of other people listening from home can tune in. Of course, we are heard on the mobile phone. I mean, we are on all the mobile handsets by virtue of app, or we go to something called as TuneIn. So we are actually heard everywhere. Even we are on CarPlay. We are on systems like Bose, where you turn on Bose and you search for Radio Banglanet, or even Alexa, for that matter, can play Radio Banglanet. So we are available everywhere, but still, as you said, to reach out to the community, it needs an extra nudge, an extra push. And that's where the government factor comes in, where they can give us those kind of platforms where people like us who are eager to perform, eager to showcase something, eager to connect people, eager to educate people. And that's something I think the government needs to have some kind of strategy for.
I would say that you need to kind of create a petition to Department of Culture, Media and Sports, DCMS, and bring forth your arguments, because although it might look unlike other spaces, that investment in culture is very relatively long term, and it helps the society in many more ways than investment in other fields. And that certainly, especially for the Bengali audience, Bengali diaspora in this country, that needs to happen, because I do feel that they're dwarfed a little bit, on one hand, by the Bollywoodization of the Asian culture, which is overbearing, in the Asian diaspora all over the world, especially in this country as well. So we need to give audience to communities which have a deep cultural resonance within that community, and that will help break through and connect them with United Kingdom in a better way.
Manish, that I wanted to add to this thing that I was saying. which actually pertains to the last thing that we were discussing, is recently, as you know, we have been discussing this. I have been acting in a few Bengali films recently. Over the last couple of years, I've done about 4 or 5 Bengali films. So what I have noticed is the filmmakers, they come to England to shoot their product. I would call it a product. I mean, film these days is a product.
Of course.
Yeah, so they come here to shoot the film. They take local artists, somebody like me or some of the friends we have who are good actors, and they finish the film, they go back, they release it from India. In the same breath, I was thinking, like, if people like Radio Banglanet have got the the drive to do something new, produce programs here, I would really want to see within a few years homegrown films, Bengali films made in UK, and the reverse migration of films happening, like a film completely produced, written, produced, directed in UK, and releasing in the theaters in Dhaka and Calcutta.
That's a good thought. Hold it there, Joy. That's a good thought, and you need to kind of work towards it. Joy, we're coming towards the end of the show, so I have a few more questions which I want to kind of get you to respond to. We talked about the Bengali diaspora, and I think it's one of the more learned and influential diaspora in the UK, in the world. What is your vision for the diaspora? I'm saying the combined Bengali diaspora coming from West and East Bengal. What is your vision?
I mean, to be honest, Manish, is a very, very broad question. I mean, this vision probably cannot be summarized in a very few words, because there are a lot of things, and as in Hindi we say, "Ye dil mange more." If you give us this much, we'll ask for that much. So, the vision, I think, is paint the town red in Bengali, and that if that can be said. But yes, I think the vision, what I think should be like, Bengali as a community has not been taken seriously across the globe. I mean, we might be quite content with Nobel Prizes and, whatever we do, the curry houses and the filmmakers like Satyajit Ray receiving an Oscar. I mean, there are a lot of firsts that the Bengalis did. But still, as a community, I personally feel as a community, we are not taken very seriously across the globe. And you'll be surprised to know that Bengali was still not an official language of the United Nations. This is something my missus told me.
Really?
It was being debated. It was being debated to be made, because I know that because she applied for a job and she was asked whether you know French. So she said, I know Bengali. Bengali is not yet an official language of the UN. So you see where I'm coming from. I mean, the whole vision is to make Bangla as huge and visible as possible in the global diaspora. So that's my vision for Bangla. It's not about UK or India or US or, the kind of people, as you said, there are hardly any countries in the world, starting from New Zealand till South America, where they do not listen to Radio Banglanet. And that's how I know where Bengalis live. And even in South Africa, Middle Africa, North Africa, everywhere we have Bengalis, Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, South America, Canada, Alaska even. So I don't see any place where there's no Bengali present. But having said that, we don't come across very strongly in the world diaspora. So that is what we need to aim to achieve.
So Joy, we're coming to the end of the show. Very quickly, my last question to you. I know I've chosen 4 great people: Uttam Kumar, Rabindranath, Nazrul Islam, and Satyajit Ray. Who would you say is all-time Bengali greatest artist in the contemporary times, out of the all 4?
You will get me killed just after this show.
just one last minute of the show.
Very controversial take. I personally have a different take to this. I think all these are, they kind of fulfill each other. If there was no Tagore, there would be no Satyajit Ray, there would be no Uttam Kumar, and then Qazi Nazrul Islam is a universe of his own. So I personally, to me or any Bengali person, this question is like talking to 4 deities and, asking which one is better. Somebody's for wealth, somebody's for education, somebody's for,
Joy, you've been very diplomatic, but it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. We hope to see you again, and we'll continue this conversation. Thanks a lot, Joy, for being here on the Manish Tiwari Show.